Hey guys, it's been a while, but I'm back again with another movie reaction, and today I'm going to watch Re-Animator from 1985. Uh, I've heard so many things about this movie over the years. It's an 80s movie classic. It's supposed to be a dark comedy, basically kind of like a Frankenstein ripoff, but not really. uh a mad scientist who reanimates dead flesh, dead tissue, brings it back to life. I'm guessing he brings back like corpses and then they run around killing people. I don't know. So it's probably like a more like a dark comedy take on the classic Frankenstein story. I know there's a sequel called Bride of Reanimator, so clearly there is like a Frankenstein inspiration here, but I'm guessing it's going to be a lot gorier, a lot funnier than Frankenstein. So I'm excited to see this movie, directed by Stuart Gordon, who I believe also directed a movie that probably most people don't know from the 90s called Space Truckers with Dennis Hopper and that other guy, Steven, what's his name? He was in Judgment Night. Anyway, yeah, you should check that movie out. It's really weird, but it's really fun. Stephen Dorff, I believe. Stephen Dorff, that's his name. Yeah, he's kind of he's an intense actor, but he's a good actor. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. Reanimator. I'm excited to see what it's about, or at least what it contains. I want to see if it lives up to the hype. I always love '80s movies, and you can't go wrong with a dark comedy from the '80s. Even if it has a bad script, it's going to be good. All right, let's get into it. And if you, oh yeah, in case you don't know, I usually do the reactions in increments where I'll watch the movie for 30 minutes, stop, and then react to it, and then watch another 30 minutes, stop, and react to it, and so on. So there'll probably be like three stops throughout this whole thing. The third stop being the conclusion. So yeah, let's get into it. Reanimator, 1985. Well, I'm 30 minutes into Re-Animator, and it is a very entertaining movie. I'm sad that it took me this long to finally watch it. I'm entertained by it from the first minute to the 30th minute. It started off in Switzerland at a medical school there. We're introduced to a character named Herbert West. He's kind of an eccentric guy, kind of he's brilliant, but he's an outcast. And we see right away that he's already reanimated what looks to be a person, a dead person, brought him back to life. Of course, the person was like in really bad shape, going nuts and everything. And that whole situation gets him kicked out of the medical school. And then fast forward to present day. uh, I guess he gets transferred to Mectonic Medical School, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's in Massachusetts. Uh, so Herbert West gets transferred there. He tells people he's from Europe or he's from Switzerland, but he doesn't say why he left the previous medical school. And we're also introduced to an American medical student named Daniel Kane. He's more professional. He's more down. He's more orderly. He's not such an eccentric guy like Herbert is. But Daniel is sleeping with the dean's daughter. Of course, because in every movie involving schools and colleges, there always has to be a guy who sleeps with the dean's daughter. That's like a typical '80s theme. uh, anyway, so Herbert moves in with Daniel as Daniel's looking for a roommate to live with him to help pay the rent or whatever. So of course Herbert moves in with him and wants the basement to conduct his experiments, and so he brings back a cat. Well, they have a cat. Daniel and his girlfriend have a cat that goes missing, and then they find it in Herbert's refrigerator, dead. And then later on, Daniel discovers that the cat is alive and like going nuts in the basement. And that's when he learns that Herbert has developed a chemical that can bring dead tissue back to life. according to Herbert. And so that's how the cat was brought back to life. Herbert injected this like glowing green chemical into the brain, the dead brain of the cat, and it brings the cat back to life. Of course, the cat's not the same, it's like all nuts and everything. Uh, yeah, I mean, the movie reminds me of a lot of different things. It remind a little bit like Pet Cemetery in a way because it's like in that movie, they bury a dead body or a dead animal, and then in the Pet Cemetery, ancient Indian burial grounds, right? And then when the animal or person comes back, they're not exactly the same as they were when they were alive. They go nuts and start killing. So there is a lot of that. Although this came out before Pet Cemetery, although Stephen King wrote the book, because I know the first Pet Cemetery movie came out in '89. I don't know when Stephen King wrote the book of Pet Cemetery. Maybe it was a little bit before that. I don't know if it was before Re-Animator. But since Re-Animator is based on a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, it's a story from the 1920s. I would say that this, uh, it couldn't be a ripoff of Pet Cemetery because the story idea definitely came out before Stephen King's Pet Cemetery, just because of H.P. Lovecraft's short story. So I'm not going to say that there was any ripping off going on here. Uh, I did say I know in the introduction I talked about Frankenstein. Now, so far, it's not exactly like Frankenstein because Frankenstein, the Doctor Frankenstein, didn't use like a chemical to bring the dead back to life. He basically like shocked them with electrodes and stuff and lightning. And this, it's like a green glowing chemical that brings the dead tissue back to life. So it is different in that regard. Uh, and of course, the dead the dead animal that comes back to life is crazy and so forth. So yeah, it's different than Frankenstein. It's different enough. Um, and like I said, it reminds me of Pet Cemetery, but obviously this story idea came out before Pet Cemetery, so this is the original in comparison. But anyway, this this is getting good. I can't wait to keep watching and see what happens in the next 30 minutes. I think it's going to get really interesting. And the guy who plays Herbert West, I think his name's Jeffrey Combs. Yeah, he's pretty creepy. He does creepy very well. I'm very curious to see what happens. And also, I'm thinking about there are two sequels to this movie, and I think the first sequel, Bride of Reanimator, I believe that came out years later, if I'm not mistaken. I know the third movie came out in the 2000s, like 20 years later. I can't remember when Bride of Reanimator came out. That might have been the 2000s as well, or late 90s. I have to check on that. I don't think it was the 80s though. It came out years after, so I'll have to look into that. I'll definitely want to catch those movies though because I'm really into this movie. It's really good. I'm gonna keep watching. All right, see ya. So I'm at the 60-minute mark of Re-Animator, and it does not disappoint. This has been a fun movie. So let's see what happened. Okay, so after the whole cat situation, uh, Daniel Kane, the good medical student, the proper medical student who's dating the dean's daughter, Megan, I guess he's grown a likeness to Herbert West, the mad medical student. So, even though Dan seems reluctant to want to help Herbert, he still kind of goes along with it anyway. I don't know. I guess he is curious to see if Herbert's experiments can actually work. So Herbert convinces Dan to sneak him into the morgue. So Herbert, is covered up like a dead body, with a blanket, and Dan sneaks him in to the morgue so he can look for a fresh dead body because it apparently it's important to find a body that recently died because that'll give the best results for reanimating it. So they find this one body, this like muscular guy who died of heart failure, and they inject the green serum into his brain. Uh, First it didn't work, but they inject a lot more of it, and then he's eventually brought back as like this like Hulk monster because he starts like fighting both of them at the same time and throwing them up against walls and stuff. And then Megan's father, the dean, Alan, I think his name is, he discovers this reanimated corpse, this angry reanimated corpse, and then the corpse attacks Alan, kills him, and so then Herbert brings back Alan, because he's thinking that it would work out better because Alan's like a freshly dead person, so it should have good results, but it doesn't. Is when Alan is brought back, he's like a mental patient. He's crazy and unhinged and aggressive and all that. So yeah, it's like it's certainly the morgue scene is the turning point of the movie because it just turns into a big mess of like dead bodies being reanimated. Uh, Megan eventually learns the truth. Dan pretty much has to confess everything to her to get her to understand. But the real highlight is when there's this other doctor. He's a professor at the medical school, Dr. Hill. He's kind of has an infatuation with Megan, the dean's daughter. But Dr. Hill and Herbert have kind of been at odds throughout the movie, because Herbert was always questioning Dr. Hill's, theories about the brain and everything. But then Dr. Hill discovers that Alan is really dead, even though he's alive. He's technically dead. And so Dr. Hill realizes that Herbert really can reanimate dead tissue. So he discovers Herbert's basement laboratory and kind of blackmails him into letting Hill take the credit for Herbert's experiments, saying that if Herbert doesn't do what he wants, then he'll turn Herbert into the police. So Herbert pretends to go along with it, but then ends up killing Dr. Hill. And this is the best part. So he decapitates him with a shovel, and then Herbert puts Dr. Hill's head on a tray and then injects the chemical into him. And it turns out that he actually like comes back pretty normal. He's aware of who Herbert is and everything. But what's really funny is the head can somehow control his body, his torso, and bring it over. It kind of like control it remotely. And so the torso with the arms and everything comes over, sneaks up behind Herbert and smashes his head into the table, knocks him out. And then the body is carrying its own head in the tray, walking around. It's insane, and I love it. And this is where I'm at right now, where Dr. Hill's body is carrying his head around in the tray. it's so the experiment looks like it's finally working because at least he's more conscious of like who he is and who everyone else is. So he's not just some like crazy monster who can't think. He actually can think. So I guess the experiment did work. I don't understand why though, because when Alan was killed, it wasn't that long before he got the serum, but yet he was crazy. But Dr. Hill is fine, so I don't understand that. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how this ends. I mean, now we have the headless horseman, the headless doctor, walking around with his head. So yeah, I want to get back to the movie, and I'll let you know what I think at the end. Oh my gosh, the last 30 minutes of Reanimator, the best. Like it goes completely off the rails, and I love it. So Dr. Hill, as a headless doctor in a his headless body is carrying his own head around in a tray. Uh, so well for the time being, and then he puts like a fake head on the body while the head is in a bag. It's just all over the place. So basically, Dr. Hill goes rogue, and so he steals the chemical, the reagent chemical, and he uses it on all the bodies in the morgue. We don't find this out until later, but he basically will end up bringing back all the corpses that are in the morgue. But for now, he releases Alan from the straitjacket so that Alan could kidnap his daughter, Alan's daughter, and bring her to him in the morgue. And once he does, like they strap her down naked, and then Dr. Hill is like using his headless body to like feel her up and stuff. It's pretty wild. Because Dr. Hill is like in love with Megan apparently, so he's like feeling her breasts and everything. Like wow, that's and you see his head, bloody head in the tray, just like ah yeah, watching his own hands caressing Megan. Uh, it's so wild, like but it's great. It really is entertaining. And then so Herbert comes in to confront Dr. Hill, and that's when Dr. Hill surprises him with all of the other corpses just rising up and coming to life and attacking him. Uh, but then for some reason, Alan like remembers his daughter and wants to help her finally after he ended up kidnapping her before. Now Alan, because Megan's like calling for her dad to help, and then Alan finally in his like zombie like state suddenly remembers Megan, and so that then he wants to help her, and so he goes over to Dr. Hill's head and like grabs it and like crushes it, and so Dr. Hill's dead, and then the other zombies in the morgue go over and kill Alan, uh, and we're kind of made to think that Herbert dies because there's like an intestine that comes out and like wraps around him and like kind of strangles him, but we don't actually see Herbert die, and we know he doesn't die because there's two sequels where he's in it. So obviously he's still alive. But wow, it's wild movie. The last 30 minutes are definitely wild. Uh, and the actress who plays Megan, I got she had a lot of scenes in this where she was showing her breasts, and they're nice breasts. Natural, beautiful. Yeah, I'm all for it. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely this movie's got a lot of everything. Um, Gore, sex, violence, nudity, a little bit of comedy. I mean, it is a dark comedy. It's got everything. And yeah, I was entertained watching it. I definitely want to catch the sequels. I'm sure they won't be as good as the original, but yeah, that's all right. I'm curious to see what they do next. I know, obviously, Bride of It, Re-Animator. I'm assuming they're gonna create a bride, right? Um, I wonder if Dan's girlfriend Megan comes back in the sequels. I don't think she does because at the end of this movie, Megan gets strangled by one of the zombies, and Dan ends up bringing her back to life. But we don't see what happens after that. I mean, that's where the credits come in. We just hear her scream, and then the end. Uh, I'm guessing it didn't work out too well when he brought her back. Um, but yeah, I can definitely see why this is a classic. It's certainly original in a lot of ways. It's not really at all like Frankenstein. I was worried that it would be, but no, it's not. It stands alone. It definitely stands alone. I'm curious how much this movie is like H.P. Lovecraft's short story. Uh, Probably not too much in terms of the gore or the dark comedy, but I might want to read that short story just to see how close it is to the movie. Um, but yeah, I definitely recommend Reanimator, 1985. Check it out. So yeah, subscribe, and I'm gonna try to bring more reaction videos out really soon. All right, so share this channel, share this video. Let's get more people coming. Come on, guys. All right.